Hey guys, welcome back to another video on my channel. In today's video, we are going to be updating our 2024 polling map between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. We haven't done an updated polling map in quite a while, so now is a good time to update this map based on the latest polling in all 50 states. Now we're going to be using RCP today for our polling map, and some of these states may not have polls between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and if they don't, we're going to be taking the polls that have Trump versus Biden, and that's going to be very few of them, but RCP will be sending us to those pages if Kamala Harris and Trump matchup is not available. But without further ado, let's get started. We're going to begin from the west and make our way all the way to the east coast of the United States, starting off with the states of Alaska and Hawaii. In Alaska, there are no polls right now. The latest one with Trump versus Biden has it up by 12, so we're going to be leaving it in that column for Donald Trump. Similar story in Hawaii, not much polling at all, but we all know this state is going to be safe for Kamala Harris. I expect it to be a little more narrow, but still very safe for the Democratic Party. Going now to the mainland, we're going to see a slew of polls coming in many of these states, and then many others, these states are not going to have much polling at all. In the state of Washington, there is not much polling. The polling we had versus Trump versus Biden had it at a likely margin. I will be moving the state up to a safe margin because on average, Kamala Harris has gained a few percentage points on Joe Biden. In Oregon, similar story, not much polling at all. This will be a safe state for Kamala Harris. California as well. We do have one poll that has her up by 25. This will solidify this in the safe column for Kamala Harris. Now moving to our first crucial battleground state, the state of Nevada, where there has been some polling, more favorable polling for Trump than Harris in this state. He's up by 3.5 percentage points. This will be going into that lean column for him. One of the few states that Kamala Harris hasn't really gained too much on according to some of these polls. Moving on now to the state of Arizona, where Donald Trump does have a narrow 0.8 percentage point lead. It's been pretty all over the place. Some polls have had her up, some polls have had him up by narrow amounts. All in all, this will be going into that tilt column for Donald Trump. Now we're going to get to some states that are going to be safe for Trump, including the states of Utah, Idaho, Montana, the state of Wyoming down here. We're going to have the state of North Dakota over here, the state of South Dakota, and then the state of Kansas over here, the state of Nebraska, and the state of Oklahoma. All these states do not have polling Trump versus Harris, so they will be going into that safe margin. The second district of Nebraska will be going into that lean margin because the polls have showed her up by that amount. And now we're going to move on to the states of Colorado and New Mexico. Haven't really seen much polling out of it. We do have a Trump versus Biden matchup in here. This will be going into the likely column for Kamala Harris. And in the state of New Mexico, also have not seen much polling, but I'm going to leave it in that likely column as well. We have almost completed the western half of the U.S. One final state that we have to cover is the state of Texas. And in the state of Texas, there has been polling. One of them has Trump up by a safe amount. The other one has Trump up by a likely amount. These polls are very, very old and they are very unreliable, but taking them into consideration, Trump will be up by a likely margin on average. And this is about what I expect in reality. I expect Trump to win the state of Texas between 6 and 12 percentage points, probably in the middle around 8 to 9 percentage points. But leaving that western half completed, Trump is at 100, Harris is at 94. So they are pretty much in a dead heat. And we're going to be moving now to the eastern half of the United States, where most of these swing states will be, starting with the state of Minnesota. If we go to the state of Minnesota, we can see right here that there has been some pretty consistently good polling for Harris. Not much to really judge off of, but the polling we do have keeps this state in the likely column for her. A big gain from where Biden was at. And at some points, Biden was even down in the state of Minnesota. We're going to moving down to the state of Iowa now, where there has not really been much polling at all. The polling with Biden and Trump has him up by 11.5 percentage points. I'm going to leave this state in the likely column just under that 12-point mark because I believe that Harris would perform probably similar to what Biden is performing in the state. But moving on now to the state of Missouri, not much polling out of the Missouri, so we're going to be leaving this state in the safe column. And that's going to be the theme with all of these states that I'm going to leave as safe for Trump because there isn't much polling to go out of. We can go ahead and check the state of South Carolina to also find that there is no polling with Harris. But Trump does lead Biden by 16%. This state will also be going into that safe column for Donald Trump. Let us now go back and complete the Rust Belt, starting with the safe state of Illinois, which there has not been polling coming out of it. The polling that had Biden versus Trump was a lot closer than usual. However, I will be placing this state back in that safe column, given the fact that Kamala Harris will gain a few percentage points in the state. In the state of Wisconsin, a very heavily contested state, right now Harris does lead Trump by 1.2 percentage points, given the past few polls have been very, very favorable for her. Realistically and historically, in the state of Wisconsin, Democrats are very, very overestimated, given the fact that Biden was supposed to win by upwards of 7 percentage points, and Harris and Clinton by upwards of 10 percentage points in 2020 and in 2016. I still expect Trump to win this state. However, the polling will show it going in that tilt column for Kamala Harris. Moving on to the next door neighbor of Michigan, another state that is very heavily contested, but Harris leads by 2.1 percentage points, mainly given by this poll that has her up by 11 percentage points by Bloomberg and Morning Consult. This is a complete outlier, and I expect this to fall out shortly when Bloomberg and Morning Consult release a new batch of polls that will not have this result as Harris plus 11. However, once again, this is a video from the polling and strictly the polling. This state will go in the lean column for Kamala Harris, barely pushing it into that column. Moving on to the state of Ohio, a state that looks very strong for Trump. He is going to win the state right now by a likely margin, almost shy of 12 percentage points, which is almost in the safe margin, but not quite. So that'll be staying in that likely column. To complete the Rust Belt, let's go to the state of Pennsylvania, where there has been a great deal of polls released, and they have been very back and forth. However, all in all, Trump leads by 0.2 percentage points, putting it in the tilt column for him. This is another state that I expect these two candidates to really go after, and once again another state where Democrats are overestimated quite considerably if we check back in history. So I do expect Trump to end up carrying out this state, and he does lead the polls very narrowly as of now. We're going to go now and complete the southern part of the United States, with the first state being Virginia. One poll only exists, has Harris up by 5. So this will be going into that lean column for Kamala Harris. Next up, the state of North Carolina, a state that Donald Trump must hold, and due to the polls being pretty good for him right now, I do expect him to hold the state. He is right now expected to win the state by a lean margin on this map. Another state that I expect Harris to do a lot better than Trump. Trump still leads by 0.6 percentage points. She only leads one of these polls, which is a Dem internal. The rest of them either have it as a tie or as Trump up by a very narrow amount. This state will be going into that tilt column for Donald Trump. And then to cap off the southern part of the United States, let's go to the state of Florida, where right now Trump does lead by a likely margin, 6.3 percentage points. There had been a poll released today that has Trump up by 8 in the state. It has not been included in this forecast right here, but the state nevertheless will be going into that likely column. And that right here would give Trump the election. But we still need to go up to the northeast part of the United States. I will not be going over the states of DC, Maryland, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Maine's 1st district as of now, because I know there is not any polls released. Let's check a few other states. However, the state of New Jersey, there had been no polls released, but it's quite considerable to note that Biden was only up by a likely margin in the state. However, due to the fact that there is no polling, right now I am keeping it at a safe margin. Rhode Island, Delaware will also be joining that, since they also do not have much polling at all. Even Trump versus Biden is pretty non-existent. The state of New York does have one poll, whereas Harris versus Trump. Harris is up by 14 percentage points, a lot less than the 23 percentage point win from Biden back in 2020. However, this state will still be going to that safe column, as well as the state of Connecticut. We are now left with the two remaining states in New England, the states of New Hampshire and Maine. Both states are expected to be pretty heavily contested. Right now in the state of New Hampshire, Harris does lead by 5.7 percentage points, which puts the state in the lean column for her. In the state of Maine, we can see here that there has not been polls released that have Trump versus Harris. However, we can show that right now she does seem to be favored in the state of Maine. And in Maine's 2nd district, we're going to be putting this as likely for Donald Trump. And this is going to be our final map for right now. The date is August 15, 2024. We are around 80 days away from the election. And this is going to be our updated polling map for this week. It's going to be Trump at 287, Harris at 251. We have Trump flipping Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. Harris narrowly holding on to the states of Wisconsin and Michigan. And the reason why I think this map even, doesn't really make sense is the state of Wisconsin being blue, but Pennsylvania being red, and Nevada being red. So this is why I think the polling, especially in these Rust Belt states, is going to be really off. I think less off than the previous cycles, but still it seems like the oversampling of Democrats in these three states is pretty sophisticated and is pretty widespread. So I think right now we need to continue to monitor the numbers that come out and dig deeper into those bar brackets and see, how much Democrats are being oversampled and how much realistic it could be. I mean, there's a poll that came out of Wisconsin, I remember, that had Harris up by 9. We have polls in Michigan having her up by 11. This reminds me a lot of 2020 and even 2016. But we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with these polls and how it ends up shaping up the election. This is not my personal prediction, but it is a polling map based on RCP itself. And it has Trump still winning, even though Kamala Harris has been gaining considerable amount. The state that is keeping him from losing right now is the state of Pennsylvania. And this is why we can see him putting out so much more money than Harris in this state. He sees this state as the most important. I mean, it is 19 electoral votes. This state will definitely decide the election. So it's good to continue to monitor this state. And I do want to release a video going over just the state of Pennsylvania. So please let me know in the section below if you guys want to see a video that has just the state of Pennsylvania, a deep dive and analysis of that state and how I think it's going to go in the election coming up soon. But either way, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, comment down in the section below, and I'll check you guys out in the next one.